This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, and I'm looking at your CFL Week 7 slate. Getting ready to preview the four games taking place in the Canadian Football League. Let's start with Winnipeg taking on Hamilton tonight to start the week on Wednesday. Hamilton has seen a lot of money in this game. They opened about 2.5 point road favorite. Now been bet up all the way to 4.5 in this game. Probably a big reason for that is the Winnipeg situation with their home field, which has been dreadful for years. They have not been a good home team. They're 0-3 straight up and against the spread at home this season. Losses by 8 to Montreal, 4 to Edmonton, 15 to Calgary. Hamilton off their bye week. That's always a positive situation for a lot of teams in not only the CFL but NFL and college football. Bye weeks are always something you want to take note of, and Hamilton is coming off one, and they're also in revenge for a loss to Winnipeg back in Week 3 at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. They lost 28-24 despite outgaining Winnipeg by 70 yards. However, they turned the football over 5 times, and usually you're not going to overcome that many turnovers in a game. Hamilton quarterback Jeremiah Masoli has been very good in the second half each of the last 2 weeks, leading Hamilton to back-to-back road wins against Montreal and Edmonton. Hamilton now a perfect 3-0 straight up and against the spread on the road this season, and 14-4 against the spread in their last 18 road games. Their defense has been pretty solid. And on the flip side, Winnipeg coming off a nice road win against Edmonton last week outright as road underdogs. They beat the Eskimos. Matt Nichols at quarterback in his first start replacing Drew Willie was very solid, but there is issues with Winnipeg this week from an injury perspective. In the secondary, they've got some shuffling going on due to injuries, and at wide receiver, this team very decimated heading into this game. Weston Dressler, Darvin Adams, and Ryan Smith, 3 of their top 5 receivers out for this game due to injury. So who's going to step up to catch the football for quarterback Matt Nichols? Big concern for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this game. I agreed with play on Hamilton at the initial number, -2, -2.5, but now it's up to 4.5. A lot of value is gone now. Still lean Cats, but a lot of the value gone on the Hamilton side. Maybe a game that stays under the total as well of 49.5. Just not sure if Winnipeg's going to have that explosive downfield passing attack with so many receivers injured. And of course, Hamilton's defense pretty solid. Winnipeg's defense actually hasn't been too bad this season as well at times, so maybe a lower scoring game, a little lean to that game staying under the total of 49.5 as well. All right, let's move to Thursday's slate. We've got BC taking on Montreal. BC, a 2.5 point road favorite, total of 50 in this game. BC, to me, the better of these two teams, and normally I'd be looking at taking them in this situation, laying less than a field goal on the road when they're the superior team, but they are coming off just a awful loss to Calgary last week in terms of they had that game in their hip pocket, up 41-26 in the final few minutes. Jonathan Jennings, the quarterback, who had a brilliant game for BC most of the way, threw a costly interception late in that game, which started to fuel the Calgary comeback. Calgary ties it at 41. And eventually goes on to win the game 44-41 in overtime. Just you worry about a little bit of a hangover after that kind of deflating loss, and making matters worse is adding insult to that loss is the injuries, no pun intended, that they suffered in that game. I mean, BC's defense gutted with injuries. I mean, it's unbelievable how many guys left that game against Calgary on the defensive side of the football due to injuries. You're talking about them being down their nose tackle, Michael Brooks, cornerback Brandon Stewart, safety Mike Edom, a pair of defensive ends, Craig Rowe and David Menard, all of them leaving that game last week due to injury, and all of them not going to play in this game on Thursday night against the Montreal Alouettes. Already a BC defense that had lost cornerback TJ Lee for the season with a season-ending injury. So this is a very good BC defense. I've mentioned how good they've been all season long, but boy, they're going to be tested now with just so many cluster injuries on that side of the football, and we'll see if they can bounce back. Second straight road game after just a tough loss, bitter loss against Calgary last week in overtime. Montreal got their offense, which had been reeling in gear last week, 40 points against Saskatchewan in a 41-3 victory, a big boost to the confidence of this Montreal offense for quarterback Kevin Glenn. Finally, we saw B.J. Cunningham, a couple other receivers step up to provide support to Deron Carter in the receiving core because Montreal's still dealing with injuries to Kenny Stafford and S.J. Green. So that offense finally got going, and now you're facing a BC defense that's got some injury concerns. Maybe Montreal can keep their offensive momentum going from their best performance of the season Edmonton by far last week. BC's going to have to rely on their offense in this game because Jonathan Jennings continues to play better, even despite those late critical mistakes last week. He still had a very strong game before that. Plenty of receivers to throw to. Emmanuel Arsenault, Brian Burnham, Sean Gore. And so I think BC's offense continues to get better. Jennings continues to get more confidence. I was leaning BC early in the week, but once I read the defensive injury report, I had to back off BC in this game. A little worried about all the missing pieces on that side of the football. If anything, lean over the total in this game. 49.5, 50, and actually this is a game that I'm going to be getting back to when it comes time to CFL Play of the Week here for the Week 7 slate. All right, let's move on to Saskatchewan and Calgary on the Thursday card. Calgary, we just talked about how BC had a big lead against Calgary, let it slip late in that game in the final few minutes. An incredible comeback by Bo Levi Mitchell and that Calgary offense. 2 late touchdown drives, and they end up coming back for the 41-41 tie and then win it in overtime 44-41. But is there an emotional letdown after that kind of exhilarating, exhausting, thrilling comeback win for Calgary? Is there an emotional letdown as they face, lowly Saskatchewan here in this game? The Calgary players have talked about it. The head coach, Dave Dickinson, has talked about it, that they're worried that there might be a little bit of a letdown from that amazing comeback last week. So when you see the players and the coach talking about it, it clearly tells me that they're worried about having a letdown this week. So that's definitely the concern. I know Calgary, on paper, talent-wise, probably the way they've played and the way Saskatchewan struggled, probably is 10 or 11 points at least better than Saskatchewan, especially playing them at home here at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. But that coming off such a great, huge win against a team you're battling for first place with in the West, it is a concern. Now being asked to spot double-digit points with them in this game. And there are a couple injury concerns for Calgary. Offensive line, Dan Federkyle, Cambray Williams, 2 starting offensive linemen injured, unlikely to play. Calgary's defense has also had a couple D-line injuries in the last couple of weeks. Frank Beltre among them, questionable to return for this game. So definitely some injury concerns here for Calgary, but they keep on pressing forward. They've got plenty of depth. That's the good news. They're usually able to find guys to fill in for injured starters. On the flip side, what do you expect from Saskatchewan? A totally embarrassing, pathetic debacle last week in Montreal, losing 41-3. Head coach and GM Chris Jones is clearly finding out it's not going to be as easy turning around Saskatchewan as it was Edmonton when he took over that team as head coach. He says, we're not going to quit, I can assure you that. And if there's any sort of pride for Saskatchewan, you would expect to see it here in this game on display after such a horrific, embarrassing loss to the Montreal Alouettes last week. Darian Durant, the good news for Saskatchewan, he is back at starting quarterback this week after Mitchell Gale started the last 2 games with Durant injured. So very good news for the Rough Riders getting their number 1 quarterback on the field once again. Chris Jones says Darian Durant's looked comfortable in practice, so that's definitely a good sign for Saskatchewan. I think we're going to see an inspired effort from the Rough Riders. The question is, will it be enough? Because they've just been so bad defensively, and really it's shocking how bad they've been on defense, because that's Chris Jones' calling card, on the defensive side of the football. And for this team to still not be showing any signs of progress on defense, very surprising to me this week. I think Saskatchewan's got a better game in them. I'd be worried a little bit about Calgary off that exhilarating win, now laying this many points. Lean a little bit probably to Saskatchewan, see if they can stay within that number. Very high total. I mean, I know Saskatchewan's defense has been very shaky. Calgary's defense got gashed by BC last week in that wild 44-41 win. But that's a pretty high total. I mean, maybe some value under at 58, 57.5 in that game. And we're going to wrap up the Week 4 look, or the Week 7 look, rather, with the 4th game on the slate. Edmonton-Ottawa, revenge game for Edmonton. They lost to Ottawa at home in Week 1, 45-37. Their defense has been abysmal. Their secondary's been shredded. They're coming off back-to-back home losses, Winnipeg and Hamilton. So real concerns here with this Edmonton team. But it does kind of feel like a backs-against-the-wall kind of situation here for Edmonton. I expect them to really be motivated to snap this little losing streak, get back on track. And Ottawa's offense, with Henry Burris back on the field last week against Toronto with Trevor Harris injured, didn't look great. Henry Burris looked like he had a lot of rust. He didn't shake it off very well. Ottawa loses 23-20, so you got both of these teams coming off losses, should be expecting to bounce back. And both offenses might have the better of it in this game. I mean, Mike Riley and that Edmonton offense, very dangerous. And suddenly cluster injuries for Ottawa in their secondary. Their pass defense could be a little bit vulnerable to this vaunted Edmonton passing attack. Abdul Kanay injured. He won't play this week. Jarrell Gavins, two of their top cornerbacks, two starting cornerbacks right there for Ottawa, not playing this week. So maybe a chance for Edmonton's offense to really do some damage. But on the flip side, can you trust Edmonton's defense to get stops? I mean, it's just been so bad. They gave up 37 to Hamilton, 30 last week to Winnipeg, and a quarterback and Matt Nichols making his first start of the season. I mean, that pass defense has been absolutely horrendous for Edmonton. You know what? It's a high total, 58 and a half in this game, but it's high for a reason. I don't want the under. Even at this high number, I don't want the under. Not even maybe. If I'm betting this game from a totals perspective, I'd lean over. Edmonton's been a favorite in every single game this season. I've been leery of laying points with them, but now you get them in an underdog role. That offense has backdoor potential, of course. I'd lean to the Eskimos here maybe as an underdog, and for them to maybe really dig down deep off two disappointing home losses in a row against Winnipeg and Hamilton. So lean to the Edmonton, and again, totals-wise, probably would have to play over, even at the high number of 58 and a half. All right, let's wrap this video up. CFL Week 7 look with our CFL Play of the Week. We're going to try to get back on track. We're 3-3 through 6 weeks with the CFL Play of the Week. We're going to go back to the BC-Montreal game on Friday night. We're going to look at BC and Montreal over the total, 49 and a half and 50. It's a combination of both, actually pretty much 50 across the board. We're going to say BC-Montreal over 50. Usually these two teams are considered under teams, and for the most part they are, but this massive injury situation with BC on defense can't be overlooked. Montreal finally got their offense going last week. BC's offense, and Jonathan Jennings in particular, seem to be getting more and more comfortable and confident each week. 6-2 is the over in the last 8 head-to-head meetings between the Lions and Alouettes here in Montreal. Let's see if we can go to 7-2 with that over trend. I'm going to take BC and Montreal over 50. That's your CFL Week 7 Play of the Week.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.